again, a pastor and theologian. And this is Reclaiming the Spirit. And Reclaiming the Spirit has been going live now for almost a month and a half, almost 2 months now, really doing an effort to dissolve fear. And part of that is looking at traditions and what they offer to help us to build the building blocks, if you will, of dissolving fear. And I've been looking at Buddhism now for the last for quite some time. It's probably the tradition I know the least, to be honest with you, but it's one that I can am beginning to value in so many ways. I'm a Christian pastor, so always looking at other traditions allows me to look at myself, look at my own understanding, and then really better understand where other traditions are coming from, and better understand how other traditions complement what I already know about my own. So um, what we're doing here in Buddhism, there are 8 steps, 8 paths, 8 pillars, if you will. And we're looking at the fifth pillar today, the fifth path, which is right livelihood, right livelihood. So in Buddhist circles, if you're not a monk and you're just among the believers in the path of Buddhism, then the livelihood that you have is there's a requirement that it be ethical, an ethical job, that it be a compassionate occupation, and that you're earning a living without doing any harm to others. So there are a lot of things out there that probably do harm to others. I think of the most nefarious ones, obviously, the ones that we all would probably recognize as wrongheaded, the slave trade, certainly in historical past. Um, Maybe currently pornography and the sex slave, which goes on underneath the radar, and everybody knows about it. The abuse of illegal aliens and not treating them properly. Um, there are lots of ways that you can also interpret what is considered a legitimate path, a legitimate economy of scale, legitimate ethical pursuit that the Buddhists may not think are that ethical. Like, for example, I know that in some sectors, charging interest on loans is considered unethical. Um, and so the Buddhists really look deeply at what it means to live a good and clean and constructive and loving and thoughtful and kind and generous and quote unquote compassionate life. Compassionate life. One where we are not hurting anybody in the process of living our own lives. And to a degree, that seems kind of naive, maybe, and maybe very backward in some cases, but backward in the sense that primitive maybe is the better word. It seems primitive, but in a way, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing to live your life in such a way that you have no regrets. No regrets. Nothing that keeps you up at night. You've done everything you can to live a wholesome and thoughtful and kind existence, and that's your life. That's your life. You're not hanging anybody out to dry. You're not abusing anybody. You're not asking more than what you're willing to give yourself. In fact, you're living and giving a very wholesome and thoughtful and kind existence. So, right livelihood. Um, I know that there are always temptations. There's temptations to participate in a life that maybe is not very compassionate. Maybe you're wondering about the life that you've had if you've destroyed ecology, you've destroyed nature, you've hurt others in the process. There was a great movie called Dark Waters. That was, Tom Ruffalo played a lawyer who looked at the whole issue that DuPont had evaded and escaped scrutiny for the polluting of many, many towns and townships in Pennsylvania back in the 1970s and 80s. And they just turned a blind eye to the amount of water contamination in the wells and in the pursuit of the creation of Teflon and the coating of our pots and pans. talk about unethical and looking away from a problem that probably killed maybe thousands, if not tens of thousands of people over the course of years of neglect. So there are things out there that we can avoid, and we have to have the moral fiber to be able to avoid those things and to not participate in them. And a good Buddhist mentality would say, avoid those places where, and I wouldn't say they would say fight, but I would say live your own livelihood on your own terms, and that those values and morals will dictate how you treat others and how yourself can sleep at night and actually continue to make a contribution to those around you. So I invite you to consider what right livelihood might mean for you. What is right livelihood? What is right? What does it mean to be ethical? What does it mean to be compassionate? What does it mean to live above the board on a high level so that you're not contributing to the misery of other people? Something to consider as we move forward in this land of COVID-19, and lives are being turned upside down, and new jobs are going to spring up and old jobs are going to fall away, and everybody is looking a little differently at what it means to live a spiritually rich, full, godlike life. And I would recommend, and I would encourage, and I would invite you to maybe think about all those things if you're one of those people moving forward with your life, trying to figure out what to do next. Yeah. All right. Have a great day. Thanks for sharing.